Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of our chats with the people that really are making an impact and a difference in the worlds of mobile and the worlds of digital. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you to Anurag Lal, the CEO of Infinite Convergence. Anurag, welcome again, I should say.
Thank you, Dario. Really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, if you have been around with us, you might have noticed that this is not the first chat that we had with Anurag, but I enjoy, given on his background and different times, I have dwelled a bit more on what different things he's been doing as part of the both of a business and actually also of the regulatory and the ecosystem, I should say, overall as Anurag. And so much is happening. Is probably very topical to have a couple of comments with you right now. And we often speak with you about security. You're involved in Infinite Convergence, so messaging, but should also with NetSfere specific packages to secure enterprise messaging as well, and much more. But I think what's really coming to my attention is the importance of messaging nowadays. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, people would have not guessed how intrinsically, how important to the digital fabric of today messaging is. Do you feel that pressure on you as well? Do you feel how important it is? We've seen, Anurag, how only a few days ago, if you're watching these straight away, the WhatsApp, one of the major OTT messaging platform and part of the Facebook group, having a fault of a few hours. We're talking probably 12 hours, and how that impacts everybody, starting from the consumers, but now also the business world. So how close are you to the business, and how do you think we can talk about resiliency in messaging?
Yeah, so before I talk about resiliency in messaging, I think it's important for me to kind of agree with the contention you presented here with regards to the importance of messaging in the digital transformation that has been going on for some time now. That digital transformation, I think, accelerated during the COVID pandemic. And we always believed mobile messaging was immensely important as a means to communicate within your ecosystem and externally, and we saw that firsthand during the course of this pandemic as well. And that trend continues on. Pew Research has done some studies which talks about the importance of messaging as a application consumer, and they've seen a fundamental change in behavior at the consumer level, where 4 years ago, they did a similar study and social media was at the top of the list. And today, recently redid that study, and that puts mobile messaging as the single most important application on a consumer smartphone. So clearly, mobile messaging is here to stay. And if nobody can really question that, it's important at the consumer level as a means of communication. It's also immensely important at the enterprise level, and we see that firsthand. And we've been propagating this, and that thought process has come to fruition. So mobile messaging is important. I think you touched upon an important aspect of what happened with Facebook. Facebook obviously huge following, and the recent outage really brought to mind the importance of a platform such as Facebook, or well ingrained it is in the consumer mind. But you also mentioned something really important and interesting, that how had started depending on aspect of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And we obviously go out and put forth a platform that is built ideally for the enterprise to leverage the strength of mobile messaging to securely communicate within and externally. So I think it's important to understand, and businesses need to, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, great consumer platforms. They're also a great platform to communicate with end customer who in their day-to-day life remain a consumer. What they are not, and what they should not be used or leveraged as a communication platform that allows you to communicate and be productive within the enterprise. And anybody who was on WhatsApp through that outage that took place would realize immediately that these were never built to be enterprise grade. They weren't secure in a manner enterprise can appreciate them, and they were never built to be leveraged, managed, and deployed enterprise. So I would say this: communication message is here to stay. It's here both in the consumer realm and in the enterprise realm. But I would suggest people are mindful with regards to how they pick a platform that becomes mission critical for them. Do not pick a consumer grade platform, because it'll come back to haunt you from an availability perspective, from an encryption perspective, and from a security perspective. So it's immensely important that enterprise pick the right platform.
And let me follow up on that as well, because I could say that it's not the first time we've seen a fault, and there have been fault in multiple places. I mentioned even WhatsApp before, but I think it's the first time I would say that the impact was so big to be major news throughout the day. And it shows how, in comparison to 3 days ago, 3 years ago, 7 years ago, how, as you were saying, it's much more ingrained in what we do right now. And even before, probably this has been one of those catalyst moments which somehow you realize that happens, one of those small milestones, when you realize that this is now email and SMS and machine communication, fax and everything else, built in one single platform that happens to be a global platform. You even had problem with SMS. Let's face it, every platform might have its own history, but that was probably linked to a specific country or a specific operator. Now we're talking about bigger platforms and reach overall. And what do you think should be then a business experience, SLA? Should we separate them? Should we have something else? Are there application specific SLAs? Is chatting the email and chatting different from delivering e-commerce applications? How are we going to solve these in the industry?
Yes, so there are use cases. Communicating through SMS to your end customers, or providing transaction confirmations, or one-way communication through SMS is a very different use case than when you get involved in a situation where you're leveraging a technology such as this as a means to communicate within an enterprise, and leveraging and using that platform in a mission critical sense. Those use cases are totally and entirely different. And it's important for companies to understand, realize, and acknowledge that these are different applications and require, as a result, different. You correctly pointed out that sometimes outages such as this out and become catalyst events. This clearly was a catalyst event, because there's a little secret out there that enterprises are using the unsecure WhatsApp platform internally and are using it for mission critical use cases. My counsel to them is that just because it's free and it's available, that does not make it the best solution possible. And we've seen multiple different catalyst events take place in the context of WhatsApp, at least. Most recently, early in the year, they put out their new privacy policy, where they wanted to share information off of their platform with their other platforms like Instagram and Facebook, for the sake of mining user data and propagating their marketing framework. That's what they do. That's their business use case, and that's their business model, if you may. And so enterprises have to realize that each use case requires an intelligent decision process so that you can pick the right platform that gives you what you need to be able to remain secure, be productive, and be able to deliver on your business.
I think you're touching there on very important elements. So it's not just the availability, the reliance, but I think the questions that we have of the data scandals. So where is your data going? It's important, and the scandals are a simple transformation, as you mentioned. In case of WhatsApp, it was a simple change of terms and conditions, meaningful for many, especially for businesses, where you start sharing the information of your sensitive information there. But for me and you and many other consumers out there, there's been a lot of surprises and bad surprises over the years. The last couple of months, some of those companies that are really trustworthy, really doing a good job all throughout, I have to say. I'm talking about T-Mobile, and I'm talking about Cineverse, two established companies in the telecommunication field, something I would really be awful mindful of pointing fingers. But both of them had very important data breaches. Now, what does that tell us about today's dynamic with data information? Is there an end in sight? Is that going to be a continuous worry about where my data goes? Or is it something that can be done to get things better?
Yeah, so Dario, you and I've talked about this at length, right? We all recognize and understand the digitization of our universe. Data has become the next and the latest gold mine, if you may. User data is so relevant in everything we do. And keeping that data secure is a responsibility that each and every vendor has. Because information contained in these data structures have the means to compromise and actually harm end users immensely if compromised and if it comes out in the open. So with data being the new, companies that deal in consumer data, that manage consumer data, responsibility to ensure that they have processes, technologies, and processes and policies in place that allows them to keep this data secure. So this problem is not going to go away because the bad guys have figured out that getting access to this data is a home run for them. It's a financial home run for them because they can use that as a means to cause harm. So that makes this responsibility that much more. Each and every company that is dealing with consumer data, and I can bet you every company that has any business has end user data. It's our responsibility to ensure that we have the right technology, right security infrastructure, right policies in place to make sure that it remains secure. And when it is breached, because guess what, this problem is not going to go away. Something where you just check the box and move on. This is something that is going to be around for a while. Continuously up the game to stay one step ahead of the folks who are trying to breach and gain access to your information. But it's also immensely important to be responsible on how you manage that breach if it does happen. You should have the right checks and balances, policies in place, and communication mechanism. So when a breach happens, you are doing whatever it takes to not only protect the consumer's interest, but also your shareholders' interest and also your employees' interest. So this is not a problem that's going to go away. This is going to stay with us forever now, based on the fact that we're a digital, universe, if you may. And everything today has been digitized. This problem is here to stay, Dario.
So it happens to the big one, it happens to the small ones. There is no more considerations. You just simply have to prepare. And as you were saying, you have to prepare for it not happening, but also when it happens, if it happens, what to do. So you need to have your plan sorted. And talking about plan sorted then, there is something else that I thought was interesting that happened last May. In the US, the Biden administration released an executive order, which maybe I should ask you to simplify what it meant, but it seemed to me to encourage the government, the federal agency, and say, get your house in order. Cybersecurity is a real issue, you need to deal with something like that. So can I ask you to correct me if I got the executive order wrong, and also to tell me a bit more about what's happening in the US with these thieves? Is it really starting some serious review internally in companies, in the government?
And you know what? I think the executive order is a great first step, Dario, because clearly, the Biden administration understands and realizes that cybersecurity is a realm that has to be managed and has to be given priority, right? Because today, not only is data and cyber gold mine, it's also a means of creating warfare within organizations and within entities and countries. And we've seen that firsthand, where state-sponsored, non-state-sponsored entities have leveraged cybersecurity weaknesses as a means to compromise certain, major capabilities here in the United States. We saw a fuel pipeline that was kind of compromised because of a cybersecurity breach. And clearly, there are national assets that can be compromised if we don't manage cybersecurity effectively. So the administration put a stake in the ground and said, listen, this is important. And this is not only important for us in the government, it's also important for us to partner very closely with the private sector. Because guess what? The sector, it's their technology that essentially is deployed within the government. And if we partner with them, our government systems are not going to be secure. So this actually puts forth a framework where it forces a recognition of the problem, and it forces you to take certain steps in ensuring your government agency is following practices that allow the agencies to keep their information systems infrastructure secure. And also it allows the agencies to work proactively in the private sector as a means to ensure that there's a level of cooperation so that they're getting best of technologies within the government sector as a means to manage the cyber. So I think it's a great means to draw cooperation between the government and the private, because ultimately you have to do that. It's a great stake in the ground that forces agencies like the Homeland Security Agency, Department of Justice, and other federal agencies to take this problem and recognize the problem and make sure that they are instituting best practices to keep their agencies secure. And it also puts forth a path moving forward to ensure that cooperation and action continues. I will say one thing, Dario, even though that they have recognized the problem, and this has come forth as an executive order from the President of the United States, an executive order, unfortunately, does not carry the same strength, if you may, or value if it was actually a law that was passed by Congress. So now is the time for us to take the executive order, recognize the problem, understand that this is a good first step, and then I put forth the onus on Congress to pick that but and really put forth a set of laws and actions that are compelling and required as a must-do for all our agencies and our private sector entities, so that we as a country remain secure and we can keep our assets secure and we can keep our national capabilities secure. And then use that as a means to lead the rest of the globe so that they in turn are able to work with us around that as well. Because this problem will only continue to go up. And again, first step, but a lot more needs to happen for this to really become meaningful.
So there's a direct call to the Congress in this case to do something. But Anurag, let me ask a last question, and possibly some good news. Where do you see traction now? Where are the companies, where are the sectors or the use cases where yourself as a NetSfere and Infinite Convergence are helping to secure part of the messaging to provide some of those gating and specific business applications that we can provide the additional security needed.
Yeah, so a couple of recommendations in this executive order was for government entities to start leveraging cloud-based technologies and cloud-based infrastructure. That's the first thing. The second thing, they forced government agencies to start leveraging two-factor authentication as a means to keeping their applications secure. A third part of this was encouragement for agencies to leverage encryption as a means to ensure that they keep their communications secure. Now, the goal is we provide all three of those. Today, our NetSfere platform is entirely end-to-end encrypted. That makes it immensely secure. So it falls into that requirement. Two-factor authentication is enabled through SMS. And we again support it, and we have a robust two-factor authentication capability and platform that the government and the agencies can leverage. And again, the cloud recommendation fits in right in our realm too, because all our applications and capabilities are cloud enabled. So, we are excited about this, and we are helping a lot of government agencies. I mentioned law enforcement to you when we were speaking earlier as a vertical that has become very important to us. And so we are helping government and government agencies to leverage the strength of the products and services we provide so that they can conform to not only the executive order, but they can conform to the requirements of our time in the context of cybersecurity. Keep their agencies secure, their applications secure, and their environment secure.
Anurag, it's great to talk and to hand up on some of the positive news sometimes there, when you can actually say that something can be done, this can be done today. You don't just need to weather the storm, you can protect yourself and you can do something for future. That's probably the beginning of more discussions we could have anyway, as well. I like to go into details with you, but for the time being, I think we're going to end up on these positive news. Any last words that you have for some of the enterprises, government out there, really telegraphic, what would you tell them to do or where to start from?
Again, it's a pleasure talking to you, Dario. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I think some of the questions you raised today are very, very relevant. My only comment as I end this conversation to anybody watching, for either a government agency or enterprise, pick the right platforms for your use cases. Because a platform such as WhatsApp is free and freely available does not the ideal platform for you to kind of depend on for your mission critical applications. There are platforms such as ours, we refer to it as NetSfere, do the same in a very very robust manner, while making sure that you have control of your data and you are completely assured through an encryption mechanism that data is secure. So pick the right platform for your use cases. Do not count on consumer applications to deliver that availability and productivity that you're counting on. And if you do this right, I think you're in a good position to enjoy the benefits that digital communication and messaging has the means to deliver on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much, Anurag Lal. Always a pleasure talking to you. I hope we're going to do it very soon again. But for the time being, that's all. We'll hope to see you again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David. Take care.